Rightio team, now this is going to be a bit odd, right? And I'm going to ask you before the podcast actually starts to bear with this podcast. Why am I asking you to do this? Well, the topics that are discussed in this podcast do vary quite a bit. There is the likes of suicide, drugs, and difficulties in relationships. So there are a lot of difficult topics to listen about. But I feel like what's in this podcast, there's a lot in here that will help a lot of people. And if you just stick with it and listen to it all the way through, I'm hoping that some of you will find things that actually do help you. So, team, just as we're about to get into this, make sure you stick with this podcast and and there'll be links in the descriptions. If there's anything in here that brings up feelings that you didn't want to bring up, there will be help links. You could reach out to myself as well. My Twitter link will be down below. Feel free to DM me, and obviously I'll try and help where I can. But like I said, team, with this podcast, just stick with it, and I'm hoping that you all find something helpful within it. Sam and team, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Simply Podcast. You're joined obviously by myself and my co-host Remy. Remy, how are we today?
Not too bad. Been a long week, man.
Long week. I mean, I'd say the same for myself, but I've been off for the week, so it's been a pretty vibing one for me. Yeah. No, team, welcome in to this podcast. Thank you so much for all the support we've had on the previous podcast clips as well. The clips have been unreal, so make sure you continue to show your support with those as well, because they have been flying. I've got a lot of things kind of planned coming up at the moment. It's maybe been a bit of a slower week in the side of the YouTube side, but that's mainly because I've been getting a lot of other stuff prepped to come out in the future. So you've got some really good content coming out soon from myself. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We'll see what happens. But yes, today's episode's a little bit different. Well, I say different. The topic of today's episode is similar to one I did a few weeks ago. Well, actually, more precisely, actually about 2 months ago, where I did a podcast on my kind of mental breakdown. Now, don't worry, I've not broken down since then. I'm not all of a sudden in the corner shaking because of random events happening. No, I'm absolutely fine. Today we were actually here because Remy has decided that he is okay with opening up about some of the difficulties that he's had in his past and sharing some of his stories, which will hopefully benefit some of the people listening to this podcast and give them hopefully better grounding and maybe potentially tools for dealing with when issues arise going forward. So, team, I will say this, it may not all be easy to listen to, but I do advise you all to kind of bear with this podcast and really listen, because I think this is definitely going to benefit a lot of people on that one. And obviously, Remy, this is going to probably bring up a lot of old feelings potentially with yourself on this one.
This will almost be like first real therapy I've ever actually done about the process of events that led up to everything. People know bits and pieces, like as I told you before, but I've never sort of went start to finish through what I actually went through.
Yeah. So, team, this is the first time I'm hearing a lot of this as well, so you'll be coming on the journey with me here. You put pressure on me there, Remy, when you say this is the first sort of therapy. Now, dude, I haven't done counselling. Since I was 22. So
it's never too late to jump back in.
Jump back in. I mean, back then I had knives thrown at me and stuff like that. So as long as you're not throwing knives at me, we're good.
I'll keep you alive for a bit more.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll go through stories of my youth work days at some point on the podcast. So stay tuned for that. And you know what? If you're going to stay tuned for that, you might as well subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. That was a nice, smooth transition. I really like that. That was smooth as anything. Only if I could be that smooth when talking to women. But anyway, let's crack on from there. Maybe I wouldn't be single if I could be that smooth all the time. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just cry in a corner with that one, but is what it is. That's some start to a podcast. This is going to be a mental health podcast, and I've just talked about how I'm single, and I'll just send this out on probably my Hinge. So, team, obviously this podcast is going to be about kind of mental health and a lot of challenges that are faced with that, but particularly this is going to be about Remy. And Remy is going to be sharing a lot of personal details here. We're going to get insight into what his life was like, even but probably more from what I knew before. Obviously I can see a list of events in front of me here, and obviously we're going to be asking for a lot of detail in this, but it's mainly going to be Remy talking here. So obviously make sure you stick with it and listen to everything, because there's going to be a lot of extra stuff in here that will hopefully help some of you here. But first of all, Remy, let's obviously first of all, obviously mental health, very important. It's something that I, particularly myself, have kind of become more educated in, from the point of view that obviously before my actual mental collapse, I never had any mental health issues at all. Like, I never had anything. I had maybe a little bit of anxiety, but and honestly, I don't think anyone doesn't have anxiety. I think this is something that we've all kind of got. But other than that, I would have described myself as very mentally sound. Would you say just yourself before obviously all these events happened?
No, I've sort of always had troubles with mental health and dealing with them personally. Like the first, I think I was maybe around 11 or 12 when I actually started noticing like I'm clearly not thinking the way I should be. Like this is kind of fucked up in a sense, but it never really manifested into anything worse. Okay, that's wrong to say that, but but because of the things that did happening, I look back on like my early struggles with depression as like I feel like I handled it better when I was younger than when I was an adult, because I sort of almost let it consume me. Like because roughly around the time back when you actually first met me, like you, Andy, and your brother and all that, like on pro clubs, that was about a year into that is around the time that I just started doing stupid things that like I had no real no real fucking place in being there in the first place. So I'm not gonna name any names. Because I don't want to bring light to people that probably don't want attention. But I started hanging around the wrong kind of people, and
so when you say wrong people,
coinciding with
what
recently
with wrong people, what would you mean by wrong people?
Well, in the sense that I was never really interested in drugs. Like I smoked a bit of weed here and there. Like I do now. Like I smoke weed now as well, but I had no real interest in the likes of coke, MDMA, Valium, which we'll get on to later. Like ease. Like I never really had any inclination to like take a lot of these things, because I just never seen the point. But that as I sort of lost myself in this sort of a group that we'd formed of just a bunch of fucking degenerates, honestly. It's almost like this idea of oh, it must be good because I'm starting to forget my problems. Like I'm having fun, so maybe things aren't as bad. Oh, I see them. Yeah, like one of the things that actually got me so and that especially Valium, like that was the substance that I became addicted to. And I never had a problem with weed, alcohol. Like I could always like say no to things like that. I could always like I would go off drink or for weeks or months at a time. Same thing with weed. It's not something I ever had a problem with, but because I still always felt like myself with those. But when it came to everything else, it was almost like you hit the nail on the head with escapism. I felt like either this is like I know.
Can I ask you a question on that one, just for people that maybe need a bit more education on this? What is Valium? What does it actually do?
Essentially, it's a sleeping pill. Right. It's a thing that sort of like eases you down a bit.
And how did you end up like starting to use it? Was this Was this something that was offered to you through this group, or was it something you?
Yeah, it was offered to me through the group via my flatmate. Well, it was my apartment, but he stayed there with me, so he did for a while. He one of his friends was a dealer, and he just used to get like fucking bags of this stuff, like hundreds and hundreds of fucking pills. I mean, at the worst of it, we were him and I were drinking maybe 2 liter bottles of Jack Daniel's honey a day, with maybe 12 or 13 fucking pills on top of that, just like on a daily basis. At one point, there was a good like 4 days in a row where I just can't account for. And I remember like one of the girl in the group. Like all I remember is like days after that is just waking up like shivering. She's in my living room, so we're like watching my TV, and it's like, oh, you're finally awake. It's like, what I mean, like, you've been fucking on like out of control for the last 4 fucking days, man. Like, like if it wasn't for us like coming in, calming you down, you probably would have been evicted, because apparently I was like trying to smash up the place, like and like do real fucking harm to myself. But no, I got the volume came through my flatmate, so it did. We were because normally it was just like a bit of coke, a bit of MD, but then when he became introduced into the group, it's like one of them ended up going on to heroin, but she's like since gotten off it. But you can see the damage of where
Can
that
I ask you as well,
what that
right? So, see, obviously we mentioned obviously escapism.
Yeah.
What was it you were trying to escape from? Like, what led you to?
being me.
Well, what led you to this crowd actually? Like, what maybe forced you? Was it anything actually outside? Obviously your own choices. Was there any other factors that kind of made you kind of go towards obviously these kind of bad choices?
There were, I've always sort of had like a problem with authority in the sense, and I grew up in a very strict household, like an extremely strict household, like old school Belfast parenting. Like, you stepped out of line, you got the fucking hanger. Like, it is what it is. Like that. I don't personally. I don't really see too much wrong with it. Like, I may have had a tumultuous childhood, but I wouldn't trade it for anything else. That's not part of, or it might be. You never know. His therapy never really worked for me, so it may have something to do with like with certain things that were wrong with me. Like, but nothing really pushed me in that direction. It all sort of just like fell into place.
You just saw a path and you decided, you know what, this I'll walk.
Yeah, I just kept going. Like, I didn't see anything wrong with it. All these people seemed nice. I met them on a night out. Like, took some of their numbers. They asked me to come out like a couple days later, and it just like snowballed from there. Really, like, they weren't bad. Like, they weren't bad people. It's just people end up doing a lot of things that they don't really realize the damage it's doing to them, and more importantly, the damage is doing to the people around them. Because at that point, I genuinely just didn't care. It was better to get fucked up and be someone else. It was better to be drooling on my own living room floor, instead of like having to remember that I hate myself. That I actively wake up every fucking day despising the ground I walk on. Like, I've had numerous suicide attempts, and thankfully, none of them were successful.
Why did you despise yourself?
I don't know. It's just like, even to this day, I'm a lot better with it. Like, I still have a lot of problems, because mental health is not something that you can ever cure. You just get better at fighting the battles. I just always felt like I had to be something that I'm not. There was always like whether it was the judo school, or like what I planned to do with my life. There was always something that I always felt like I was feeling a lot. Even in work, like I'll say, like, I'll turn around and say, so I feel like I could be doing more, but realistically, what else could I fucking do? Like, it was just always finding fault with things that only really ever existed in my head. Like it's almost like I became like a pathological liar to myself. Uh, I was, and it got to the point where I was actually starting to believe some of this stuff. So that's why I always like sort of I would not speak out against, but I would take a stance against um antidepressants and stuff like that, because having like going through the phase of like not phase, but like the part of my life where it's like I just wanted to kill myself. I still do suffer with depression, and I've explained this to many people. There are difference between suicidal urges and an active plan. Like there's nothing you can do to get away from the urges, but not having an active plan is a very different thing. So like that's what I still deal with, but back then it was
Yeah, because when it's an active plan, you've reasoned with yourself to a degree and say, this is okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
When it's urges, there's no real thought. It's all emotional at that point. You've not actually thought of it to yourself and gone and really thought out the plan and really thought, yeah, this is how I'll do it. This makes sense. When it's urges, nothing makes sense. It's just the sense of the fact that it's just something that you feel hungry. Well, in this case, you feel the urges. So it's not the case of the fact where you thought it out and you've reasoned with yourself and thinking this is the only way. I've seen it a few times. My time where people have really thought of me. I've seen people write out their plans, and it's a hard hole to dig yourself out of once you're in that.
I don't ever think you're ever get out of that hole. Honestly, a lot of people who are fortunate enough not to. I do believe on some level everybody has some form of mental health issue, but dealing with depression, like I wouldn't even call it fucking dealing with it. You just sort of like accept that that's how life is, and you try to find meaning in things. You try to just like almost like find an excuse to try and stop yourself.
Yeah, it's like you have a second shadow.
Yeah.
Which was the best way that I had described to me. It's like you're always dealing with a second shadow, but the shadow is always in front of you, because you can't get away from it. So it's the fact you're always looking depression straight in the face, and you're just saying no to it that day, but then you've got to say no to it the next day. So I absolutely understand exactly where you're coming from on that one. And obviously you mentioned the fact that you were with were you having these urges mainly when you were you said you were living with a flatmate. Was this when you were at the height of the kind of drug problems then you were having these urges?
No, the reason I became addicted to it is because they took away these feelings, they took away these problems.
Right, okay.
That's why for me it was always like that's what I said. Like it was better to be fucked up and drooling everywhere than having to face the reality of dealing with myself, essentially. But like what, like I don't like if people want to do drugs, they can do drugs. But I'm very like there's a reason there's a saying called one pill can kill, because what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these things are mixed up with chemicals and stuff like that, and like you're not getting a pure drug. So like I'll be okay, like because I smoke weed now, and that's obviously for now an illegal substance. Like I drink alcohol, it's not illegal, but it's still essentially a drug. Like whereas I don't really know what way to explain it, because you almost just feel like you want, like you're almost like getting bored with not getting high. It's just you kind of almost punish yourself, and then it just leads you down to places that you never really intended to be. Like the only reason like I stopped is because my flatmate and I had the good idea well, I was like, good idea. Like at the time, thought good idea. He was the one like that originally suggested it, and I was like baking it up and like, oh yeah, let's do it. So we decided to take the volume, crush it up, and just sniff it. Now, the the reason why this is so dangerous and why like I'm okay if people want to take drugs, you do you. Like it's your life, but pills, they can it has the potential to like destroy your fucking life, like just as bad as something like heroin would. There's no real escaping from that kind of thing. Uh, so because these things are never really a pure drug, because these things are all like sometimes you just get a bunch of shit in it that's not meant to be there. So the reason why sniffing pills is so dangerous because that essentially puts all of that direct into your fucking brain. Now, I don't remember the events of what happened that night. Like, the last thing I do remember is going to sniff them, and then just waking up in bed the next morning. I think it's like 11 or something like that, and walking into the living room, just sort of like almost like sauntering in, having like a blanket over my shoulders, and like going over to wake him up, and yeah, it's like, well, like, mom, like we have to get up, like we're late for work, and him sort of just bodies just limp, just sort of turns on the side, and there's just blood, like just dry blood, like coming out of his nose, just like not pissing down, but like it looked like it had been. It's just like just streaks, and I just ran. I just ran. Like that's the only thing I could done. Like I didn't care. I should stay. I should help. I just fucking ran like a coward. Like there's nothing I could have done. Like I didn't know how to process that. I didn't know how to. It's almost like in that moment, it's just like the weight of everything that I was running from, like just came crashing back into me, and sometimes I do wish it was me, for the sense that the only way either one of us was probably gonna stop is if the other ended up dying.
Is it like survivor's guilt, you think?
I genuinely don't know because it could be survivor's guilt. I don't I wouldn't call myself a survivor. Like I'm not a victim. Like in a sense, it's like yeah, you came through addiction and stuff like that, but I wouldn't have called myself a victim to anything other than myself. Like it was self abuse. I was a victim. Like I take full responsibility for everything every stupid fucking thing I did, every decision that led me to that point.
Should point out the fact, right? So obviously you're saying you're not a victim. From my perspective on this one, just obviously looking at this one, you can cut yourself a little bit of slack now, because like looking back on it now, you can look back on it and obviously identify those decisions as wrong. And the fact that you can then you've come out of that now in a more positive light. Obviously, we'll get to the recovery part and where you are now. But the point of view from my perspective, anyway, is the fact that obviously, you know, you've experienced what really are kind of atrocities, really, and kind of something that's something you probably never get over. I would be right in saying, I imagine. So the fact that obviously you're saying the fact you're not a victim, I think you're a victim of bad decisions that seemed like good decisions at the time. So realistically at those points, yes, you deal with them, but unfortunately with those kind of things, they're really difficult to recover from. But as long as you acknowledge the fact that they are the wrong decisions, then you realistically always you never go back to them. So realistically, the fact that you say that you're not a victim, well, from my perspective, you were a victim of bad decisions, and you've recognised that they're bad decisions, and you're working forward to rectify those bad decisions. So from my perspective anyway, the fact you see you're not a victim, that's where it's kind of survivor guilt comes into me a little bit, where I hear that and I'm like, yeah, that's immediately what I'm thinking straight away. That obviously you don't hide from the fact that you made these decisions; these were yours. You said you hold yourself accountable, and then like I said, probably seem like good decisions at the time, but you've come through them. You've recognised the fact that they are bad decisions, and you've worked through them. And obviously, we'll get to the point where we're talking about recovery. But obviously, you said the point where obviously you've discovered your roommate, you've discovered the fact that basically he's a ridiculously bad shape. And if you said the fact that you ran, what do you remember next with running?
Yes. It's not a case of like whatever, because it's not. I wouldn't say it was like a blur, because like those initial couple of weeks did just drag. Like every fucking second was agony. But I just ran to my parents' house. Like I'm not on speaking terms with my parents anymore, but at the time I am thankful that they were there for me. They dealt with everything. They handled everything. Thankfully, not like there was obviously like things have to be investigated and stuff like that. Like there's a dead body there, so obviously things have to be investigated. But thankfully, like everything was up determined. There was no foul play. Like I didn't supply anything. It was like, yes, it was my house, but he was paying flat. He was paying rent. He was like a sort of pretty much I was illegally subletting it to him essentially. So like there was no foul play there. So like nothing in terms of anything like criminal ever came about it. But like, so needless to say, that social group and I like just never communicated again from that point on. And I know to this day that they do blame me for it, because like I was often the one suggesting to do stupid shit. Like, but I know it wasn't me. But that's like I've seen them a few times about town, and wait.
Is there any nasty altercations from it?
No, it's no, like I like see them like where they like you see each other, like nothing is ever said, but there was no, but the part that there's no hatred, it's just emptiness. Like looking at like I know like the situation that we're in, like was a stupid one, but to somebody you once considered to be like extremely close, like you were seeing them every day, you were eating together, laughing together, drinking together, like on a daily basis, like waking up, like them just popping on down in my kitchen, or me going up on, because they lived in the flat above me. Like they're just going. That's how I actually got the flat. Like it was through their landlord. Like me just popping up into the house, like and sitting having breakfast with them. Like I'd rather they hated me than just seeing emptiness. But like that may also be just because yeah, I probably showed you pictures. Like I didn't look good back then. I a shaved head, skinny, dying looking fucker. If not, I'll send you a photo after this. So, like they probably
I'll probably still think to myself, God, he's still an ugly fucker.
No, I've had a little bit of a glow up. I'm still fucking ugly, but I had a bit of a glow up. I'm not as bad.
Yeah, I remember that. Oh, you got the man bun still, don't you?
Ponytail.
Yeah, I have expected to be like, as soon as you hit the bottom step of the,
big old braid.
I've expected you, as soon as you hit the bottom step of the stairs all the time, just go all the time. Yeah. Oh dear. Right. Yeah. As you were saying, obviously, at the point you were saying about these people hate you. Do you feel like actually, in some ways, that's a good thing? Do you know if they've changed what they were doing because of that?
I haven't spoken to them since. I genuinely don't know. Like I haven't spoken to these people in over 5 years. Like I've like no idea if their life is better or worse or.
Okay.
Like I do kind of wish them the best, but at the same time I don't, because like I would never have been in that fucking situation in the first place. So, like, no, I made this decision myself. Like I can't go around start blaming other people for this dumb shit that I made the conscious and adult choice to do.
Okay.
But like the only like I had an active plan then. I I've never been a I've never been a fan of like cutting, or like I could never, like, that's something that I have a fear of knives. I could never just I could never do that. So it was uh,
So just to kind of go back a little bit there, you're saying that you could never. Could you just clarify again what you were meaning by that? Like you could never what?
I could never cut myself. I could never I could never actively do like, because I didn't want to feel pain. I wanted the pain to stop.
Right.
Like I saw no value, no worth, no meaning in me trying to do damage to myself and inflict more pain, when all I ever craved was just for it to like stop being so painful to be me. But like the thing that stopped me, because like at the time I was on Tinder and stuff like that. I was single. I didn't really give a shit. But uh, the only reason I'm probably still alive is because about a month, maybe a month and a half, 2 months after this happened, uh, I met Dasha, who is now my fiance, and the only reason I'm probably still walking and breathing is because of her. Because it's like I don't think like I wanted to get better, but I don't think I ever would have, because I just didn't see a reason.
Of the time frame. At the moment that you met Gosha, on a rating out of 10, how broken were you at that time?
I was a 10. That's I.
So 10 out of 10. You were like literally like broken jigsaw puzzle.
I wasn't me.
Yeah.
Like I saw no way of like use your own terminology, like a jigsaw. I saw like I was just shattered as a person. I saw no way to put these pieces back together. I saw no way of getting out of like this. Like I may as well go out, have a bit of fun, fucking go out with a bit of a bang, fucking blazing saddles.
So did you see it as a different form of escapism then?
Pretty much, just as a means to an end, until like I actually, I wouldn't say courage, because that's like I have a very different view on suicide now, because of my own things. I've often heard people say it's brave, but I genuinely don't believe it is, because the brave thing to do is to, and I know some people don't, unfortunately don't ever have this moment of realization, but the brave part of suicide is standing up to it, is not giving in, like choosing to fight instead of just letting the shadow take over you, just like falling in, like giving yourself to this abyss that you just crave endlessly. And the only reason that I was able to walk out of that is because of the day I met her. 20th of April 2018. Funny enough, like if we met the day Avicii died, like a little like sub note of.
So, but what did Gosha do? That well,
I don't think she.
What do you feel like it was about Gosha that changed your perspective on this? Like what turned you around that Gosha did?
She was It was the first person that didn't look at me like it was a scumbag in a long time. Like, you could tell, I like, as she'd probably tell yourself, like when she met me, you could tell that I wasn't okay. You could tell that there were things wrong with me, that life wasn't exactly going my way. But she stuck around when she shouldn't have. I to this day I question, why the fuck is she with me? Like, I know I'm punching, like everybody says that in terms of a physical thing, but like in terms of as a person, like I'm a piece of shit. Like, I still to this day question, why does she love me? Like, why does she still stay with me.
So,
Like,
I mean, what were the answers you come up with that?
I've never found one. That's my problem. Like I know she cares. Like I would never ever question that. But it's just I don't know why. I can't see the value in somebody wanting me.
Why do
Uh,
you feel that way?
I think my only value is my worth, not like a like my use to other people. Like it, uh, my only my only real talent has ever been being a useful tool for other people. Like I didn't really see much value in myself as a person. Like there was nothing uniquely there.
Okay.
Like
Why
I do wish.
why do you feel like that's all you had to offer? Is there anything in particular that kind of springs to mind as to why you felt like you were a tool? You weren't like you didn't have the tools
Because
to be
nobody, like up until like a certain point, up until I met Gasha, the only person in my life that like was stuck around, and like and you were chatting to him earlier, like Errol, like he's like we've been very close friends for the longer part of 13 years, and like I
Here's a question for you,
straight is.
right? What do you think Earl thought at the time this all going on?
Honestly, I don't know if people knew. People like I kept this side of me, like kept like did you and Andy know? Because you guys knew me and were
Yeah, but
pretty close with
in
me.
fairness, it's not really the same with me and Andy because
True.
realistically, like it's online. Like realistically, you
Yeah.
could be portrayed to be anything. Like for all I know, I come meet you in July and you're a fluffy unicorn. You know, like I mean, I mean, I'm not saying that's actually what's going to happen, but it's in the realms of possibility. I come up to you and you're dressed as a unicorn. Um,
I will wear a costume.
uh, yeah, okay. But yeah, like in realms of possibility. Like, at that point, you don't really know what to expect.
He probably like people probably did know, but I just assumed they didn't because like I always thought I had to be the smartest person in the room. Or like I still done my job, like I still kept my house tidy or flat tidy. Like I was destroying myself, but I still functioned.
Yeah.
Like other than how I looked, like I genuinely looked like I had fucking leukemia. Like I was like that fucking skinny and pale, and the fact that I decided to shave my head as well. But I'm adamant my parents never knew because it was always a case of like
Do you care what they thought about you?
no
Not even at the time of it all happening.
at the time. Probably not, because I never really had the best relationship with them. It was always they're kind of just there for me. But now, not no. I'm probably not even gonna go to their funeral. Yeah, in all honesty, like that is not a part of my life that is open anymore.
Oh, I understand some of the issues. I mean, I will ask you to go into them on this podcast. Stay tuned for part 2, guys. No, that's a joke. That's a joke, team. Right, calm down. But yeah, we're obviously we're at the point where you've met Gosha. Now you were questioning obviously why she was what she saw in you that made her stick around. If I had to ask you for one answer, one in particular thing that you think that you brung to the table at that point, and nothing dirty, what do you feel like you brung to the table that helped Gosha stick around? What do you think? One thing.
My sense of humor.
Sense of humor. So
That's well, okay. That is something that I do value about myself.
So obviously you bring to the table a sense of humor. We'll say that alone made Gosha stick around. What did you see in Gosha?
uh, hope. Like I just saw like a chance. Maybe healthily or unhealthily, I just fucking grabbed onto this chance like with every like fiber of me. Like I knew I was struggling. I knew I was like I wasn't the person she needed me to be back then. But like and I was like I don't know if anybody's ever told you what it's like to like come off something like that, but it's you become angry all the fucking time. Like you, it's not just like the craving or something like that. It's just that like, the feeling that something is missing. Like you had become so ingrained with something in your life that it's just pain that you now just have to fucking accept that this is gone. But you know it's a good thing, but you just hate everyone and everything around you. Like, and I was saying I've said some horrible fucking things to God. So this is another reason why, like, I'm surprised she's still with me. Like, during my period of recovery, I was a fucking horrible cunt. Like, I never hit her. I never done anything like that. But in terms of like, when I got angry, the things I said were like, I'm saying things on purpose just to fucking hurt her. Like, and it's something that I've never forgiven myself for. I don't think I probably ever will, because especially now, like we're about to have our fifth anniversary, in April. So like she's allowed me to become somebody that I'm actually proud of being. So like looking at what way I was treating her, like at the time I just thought like, oh, it's justified because, oh, I've been hurt. It's like oh, like things aren't going my way, so like I'm allowed to act out and treat the person who means the most of me like a piece of fucking shit. Like that's what I mean. Like I know I'm not that way anymore, but that's why I still refer to myself as like I'm a piece of shit, because like I consciously did these things. I was never like physically abusive or anything like that, but
So, do you feel that you were emotionally abusive then?
probably
Like, in the sense of like, do you feel like you know, when you said the fact you said stuff to Gosha to be to actually hurt her, was that
it was like I wanted her to hurt as much as I was hurting.
right? So okay, yeah. So in some ways you wanted to share the load, in some ways.
But it still wasn't fair or right.
So do you feel that Gosha knew that at the time? That was one of the reasons why.
I I I don't know. Like, I mean, she might have, like, 'cause she'd been working in like in an old folks home. Like, I can't remember what the actual term for them is called. About like dementia patients, like people with severe mental health issues and stuff like that. So she was, she might have recognized things wrong with me and maybe seen something there. Because like I like to think, like, yes, I'm still a piece of shit for what has happened, but in terms of like who I am now, uh, if if it wasn't for her sticking it out with me, I probably would have went back. I probably again would have probably just fucking offed myself. But
Here's a question, Paula. Obviously, you mentioned mistakes that you've made before. Why do you feel that you need to keep bringing these up? Why do they keep coming to the forefront of your mind that these are stuff that you cannot forgive yourself for?
because people aren't remembered for the things they do right. People are remembered for the things that they do wrong, and I've done a lot of wrong. So I one thing in life that makes me like genuinely, there are a few things, but one of the things that actually makes me happy is making someone else feel joy. Like for however brief of a moment in time, like, I've said something fucking really dumb, and for a brief moment, like everything sort of just washes away. So I'm hoping like she's seen some kind of light in me. because like I do genuinely enjoy helping people because I feel it's not an obligation to, but I think what's the fucking point of living with this shit if I'm not gonna make it work for me? Like it's ruined enough of my life that why can't I weaponize this for myself instead of weaponizing it against me?
Yeah. So one of the reasons I asked you, obviously, why this was something that came to the front of your mind, and obviously, can I ask you about why you were doing what you were doing to Gosha? Have you spoken to Gosha about these things?
Yeah, and like, yeah, not in depth as this, but she knows how.
And have you heard her say that she forgives you for it?
I know she does though. She hasn't like explicitly said it, but it's the case of she wouldn't be here if she didn't. Like, if she was willing to put in the work to help me get better, then she had to have known, like, no, it wasn't really me doing this shit. It wasn't really me. Like, it was, yes, it was my body, it was my mouth, it was, they were my words, but it wasn't me.
What makes you
Like, that's not
what
me.
makes you say it wasn't you?
Because I don't cry often, but like anytime I've cried in the last lot of years, it's been when I've hurt her. Not like not anything I've been through, not anything else. Is if I like remembering every time I cross the line, like I there's no, I don't really know how else to word it.
Okay, there is. So obviously we talked about kind of there about Gosha helping you kind of recover. Obviously kind of talk to me about that process in the sense of, obviously you mentioned about saying stuff that you said to intentionally hurt her. Kind of, well, where did you recognize yourself that you were getting better? What point for yourself did you feel that you had turned a corner?
Yeah, about I'd say about a year, like a little after our first anniversary. Like I found it hard to stay in one job because nothing was fulfilling and nothing was doing anything for me. Like I was making great money at times, but I just never, it never really fit into it. So, and that's how I sort of like just fell into construction and ultimately scaffolding. Um, but like I was in construction for 3 years, I think, at that point, and it was sorry, it was a case of like I just didn't have any other sense of satisfaction in life, so I was just trying, oh, okay, I'll just, what pays well and uh, what can I have my weekends off? Like when do like, so it just, I just sort of like fell into construction because of like the Monday to Friday, you're like finishing at 4, like kind of things, like almost like school hours. Like you still had your day, you still had your time. So like I worked in that. Like I was always planning on getting out of it and doing something else and like doing something worthwhile with my life, but it just never really panned out. So I just sort of stayed in this volatile box for a lot longer than I ever should have. And I was, when I started working for a I'm not going to name the company, but it's a scaffolding firm over here. Like I don't consider myself to be a stupid person. I don't consider myself to be a vastly intelligent person either. But I know that in terms of like general knowledge and based on the average person, I would consider myself to be a fairly smart guy. But I've always had a problem with being talked down to, and that's what was happening when I was in this job. It was just like I was being out to be the fucking asshole, because I was if somebody said something like stupid, like it's, oh well, this is why that's a thing. Like my big one of my biggest problems is always feeling the need to explain everything in life. Like everything needs an answer. But like I was being made to do, like I was not the shit jobs, because I was doing pretty exciting jobs, but I was getting paired up with this fucking absolute numbskull, Dylan, and well, you don't know his second name, so but I'm not gonna repeat that. Like I was keeping having to be work with this guy. He was just a fucking moron, man. Like he was a danger to himself. So he was, but I think I went up like to 2 weeks in a row that I was essentially babysitting him. Like with somebody could have fucking killed me, and almost and actually almost did kill me. One day it was we were dismantling. I think it was like a seven level rise of scaffolding, like on the exterior facing of a building. So in scaffolding, you sort of like you have two people on the top, like dismantling. You have somebody the level below. No, somebody on that level to hand things down at the person level below. Then you drop a couple levels, and then there's another person in sort of like they would just drop stuff, and you would just catch it, and like it would feed its way down into the into like whatever thing it was being stored in. And Dylan was in one of the levels that was like directly below the guys dismantling it. And well, it was passing down a 8-foot steel board, so the things you're standing on. I'm at the very bottom of the scaffolding, like the last one to catch it before I pass it to the person who's storing it away. And one of the guys, Johnny, he was the one like passing it down to Dylan. And he gave it to him. It's like, all right, have you got this? Like, yeah, I've got this. And they said, so he goes to pass it down, like Gary below him. It's like, like, right, hold on, like I'm busy here. Like I'm not even paying attention. Like I'm being shouted at by the fucking foreman. And then all of a sudden, like I turn around and I see my supervisor, Alex, like, just fucking screaming at me, like to move. I look up, like in a split second, just jump out of the way, and this metal board just fucking crashes like feet away from me, like like completely mangling the metal board that I was standing on top of. Like, and when he didn't even fucking seem apologetic. It was just like oh fucking hell, that I can't believe that, like an actual fucking moron. And when he came down, I just saw red. Like I fucking beat him like bad. And but there was almost like a moment of clarity in that way. I just stopped hitting him, and I realized, like, what have I fucking done? Like what have I genuinely fucking done here? Like I've just fucked everything up here. Like I said, I took him to the toilet to clean him up, got him out, and then I got the fucking blame for everything going down. Like they ignored the fact that the fucker almost killed me. Like, no, like a Hulk is how could you turn around and hit something? He's a kid. It's like, mate, he's 2 years younger than me. He's not a child. He may be a child to you, but he's not a fucking child to me. And like I knew that moment, like then and there, I was sacked. That was September 15th, 2021. No, 2020. That was the day I had my mental breakdown, and I remember trying to just like I had blood on my high vis and stuff like that. Just like walking home, like I remember the boss, like one of the bosses of the company, like a QC or what I think he was, ringing me, and like chatting all this shit down the phone to me, like, then like, you know you're finished and all that. all that stuff. It's like, yeah, like, no, it's like, yeah, well, if I end up fucking killing myself here, like, it's on you cunts, because you've sent me into a fucking spiral with this. Like I was made out to, like, yes, yes, I fucking beat him, but like he almost, the prick almost killed me, and like he still works for this fucking company to this day. He works for this company. This bastard's gonna have somebody in fucking hospital or worse, the grave. Nah. So like, Gosha was in the house, and I just I went up into the room, like we were living with her parents. Like I just went up into our room, and like I just fucking collapsed. I just fucking collapsed on the floor in fucking tears. Up until this point, I've never suffered with anxiety at all. It was actually one of the few things that didn't plague me. But hey, in those initial a couple of weeks, dealing with that, like I couldn't leave the house. Like I genuinely didn't leave the house for 4 months. I think I didn't shower for fucking weeks. Like I just couldn't function. Like gosh, like she was making me eat, she was making me sleep, she was like they having to remind me that I still have to fucking function. Like I just lost all ability to be independent. Like months went by, and like I was afraid to fucking leave the house. Like I was afraid to walk out the door. Like I felt like a shell. Like there was just nothing in there but fucking fear. And like when I eventually, like, this was during lockdown. So, or not during lockdown, like just before the lockdown. I remember Gasha and I were in Tesco's about 2-3 weeks after I started leaving the house. We were having a bit of an argument. So we were. It wasn't like a real argument. It was just like a typical couples thing. She doesn't really.
I'm put the sauce in the fridge. It's meant to go in the cupboard. No, the sauce is trying to go in the cupboard. You put it in the fridge. Kind of thing.
No, it's like she didn't realize that at that point I could be outside, but only if I was with her. I couldn't be left on my own. She didn't realize that she had walked on ahead of me, because I turned around to grab something to put it into the basket, and like I turned around, she's gone. I couldn't say, like I fucking just broke down. I broke down fucking into tears. Like there was nothing. In the middle, like a fucking grown ass man in the middle of fucking Tesco's, fucking sobbing like a bitch. Like there was nothing I could do. Like she obviously realized and came back to me and stuff like that. But it's not as bad now. It's nowhere near as bad now. Like weed's actually like, as long as you don't abuse it, weed can actually be quite good for certain things. Like if you abuse it, you can become paranoid, stuff like that. But in moderate controlled circumstances, it can help a lot with anxiety. But like anybody who deals with that, mine's got better. Some people don't. Like I now get, well, like we hear stories of like people that have never left a street their entire life. Like they're born there, raised there, died there. Like I can understand things like that. Like I understand why people govern their lives based off of fears that will have like such a low probability of happening. That it's not even worth considering. But it's just that's something in the back of your head. Like, but what if it happens again? What if it happens again? What if something goes wrong? Like, there's just that voice just pulling you back every single time.
And when was the moment to realize that you shouldn't go out by yourself?
I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware that I was by myself. Like Gasha told me after the fact. Because obviously if she told me at the time, like, and it really does show how genuinely caring and smart she actually is. She was like sort of like slowly testing me over like the course of a couple of like months and weeks, like sort of like backing off and like slightly. I'm not noticing that she's doing it. Like she's just sort of like leaving me very briefly and then coming back, and then by Like I just see her like I'm not even aware that she's gone. So like she was almost like subconsciously like preparing me and like getting me ready to like actually be on my own. And she was at work one day. Like by the way, in this entire from September 20th to September 15th, 2020 to November 8th of 2021, I was unemployed. I didn't work. I couldn't just go back into the working space. I would have been a danger to myself and a danger to everybody around me. But like gosh, I was in work one day and like we needed something from the shop, and she said, well, and I didn't even like by the time I realized that I was out on my own, I was walking back from the place. Like I genuinely like I didn't notice it was a thing. Um, it sort of just snuck up on me. It comes and goes in waves. Like recently I've been having some like almost like panic attacks or anxiety attacks in work, and that's that's when the autism kicks in. Whenever I have an anxiety attack, it's like my autistic tendencies tend to amplify themselves a lot. Errol would probably tell you like I'll start like I spin the coffee handles around all the time, like I'm dropping and breaking shit. No, well, not really, but I do spin the coffee handles around all the time, and I'm almost like waving it at the customer, like trying to make them look at that instead of looking at me.
All right.
But have you ever had to deal with like anxiety or like on that kind of?
Not huge, not on a massive scale. Like I have the anxiety, which I would imagine 99% of people have, on where the sense of like where you worry about what other people think sometimes, or where you worry about how something's gonna go, and you get in your own head about something. But I've gone to a place where I can kind of control that to a degree, or where I can at least dumb it down a bit. Like it's never been a massive issue, but it's not exactly gone, and I don't believe anyone's is ever fully gone. I feel like it's always something. In some ways, also good to have a little bit of anxiety because it keeps you smart. Because if you didn't have it, then you would just do every first idea that came in your head. If you didn't at least question yourself, oh, is this right? Oh, what are people going to think? Oh, is this actually a good idea? Or am I being stupid here? I feel like it's a good thing to have in a sense because it does keep you right. So having, and I should add as well, I was watching the CEO podcast. They had what's his name? I can't remember the guy's name, but it was his lead psychiatrist. And basically, the way he described it was the human brain has got 3 different systems in a very dumbed down way. It's got the chimp system, which is your emotional side of your brain, which reacts instantly but doesn't always think through the decision. It does whatever's first. You've got the human side, which thinks through decisions but is usually slower to react. And then you've got the computer system, which takes both of them into the account, and that's the decision you then take. Now, he described it in the sense that the chimp system, because it reacts emotionally and it reacts quickly, depending on how well you've got that under control, determines how quickly that gets to the computer system and makes that your action. So, for example, with anxiety attacks, on those cases, the chimp system is so overpowering that the human system then cannot talk to the computer system to then make that the action you do. It's really just overpowering it completely. You don't think logically, you're thinking emotionally, and therefore it's overpowering, and that is the action you take. It's a really fascinating podcast. I do highly recommend it to anyone because it can open my eyes a little bit in the sense that you got to think you've got 3 different systems that compute in your brain, and if you don't keep the emotional one under wraps. Now, I should add, he did state the fact that everyone is wired differently, and sometimes the emotional system is just so powerful that you can't ever fully tame it, but what you can do is direct it sometimes. So like I say, he was really fascinating to listen to when I was listening to this podcast. So the sense of sometimes with it, I may feel like I'm getting anxious all of a sudden. Well, can I then direct that at something else? Can I direct that and maybe in a sense of a more positive attribute? But say if I'm feeling anxious about my own appearance or something like that, can I then direct that anxiety to my work? Could I derive that to something where I say, well, no, I'm going to focus and double down on my work here. Is this good enough? Ask the questions that I'd be asking about myself and ask them about my work, for example. So, like I said, it was a great podcast to listen to. And when I kind of think of anxiety now, I think that's what I think of now. I think of the fact of having that gym system and trying to direct it and control it in some ways. Obviously, there'll be some instances you can't control it. There'll be some instances that you think nothing but emotionally, and you can't help that. And hope that the human system sometimes kicks in, and then you start to think logically. You start to think what the correct course of action is, and then they all come together in that computer system, and hopefully you come up with smart decisions rather than only emotional decisions, which isn't always a bad thing. Emotional decisions can also be a good thing, but she's obviously getting the right balance sometimes. But yeah, in my own roundabout way, I've kind of answered your question there. But obviously, yeah. The answer to your question is yes. I have suffered with anxiety myself a little bit, but I do believe I have it under control, to a sense.
I've never actually thought of thought of it, and that I've never heard that method being explained like that.
Honestly, I cannot recommend this podcast anymore. It genuinely is one of the most eye-opening podcasts I've ever listened to in my life. That's one of the reasons why I'm such a big advocate for the Diary of the CEO, because the guests he gets on are always amazing, and especially when there's one that's really good, he always highlights it, and then he says that this one is a really important one. That obviously the part of that is marketing, but I also believe it's also genuine. I don't believe he ever flags one and says, "Oh, you need to listen to this one just for the purpose of marketing." I believe he flags the ones that he thinks will genuinely help people. And so yeah, as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, you know what, I'll give this a chance. And it started off slow, as I would imagine it would, but I was like, no, I'll give this a chance. I'll listen to it, listen. And we was describing these systems. And he does it obviously miles better than what I've just done there. I've given down probably the most simplest terminology possible, but it was such a good listen and such an eye-opening listen that I was like, this is amazing. I love this. And I love this kind of way of thinking of having these systems in your head where they are systems. So therefore, the fact that they are systems means that there is ways that you can program them. And the fact that you can then program them means that you just need to learn how to program them. So I love that kind of terminology, the fact that things are within your control. You just need to learn how to. So yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, turn it back on you a little bit. I said, see, you turn it on me a little bit. I see what you're doing.
I gotta get you talking.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I'll be fine listening. Like I said, I kind of said beforehand, but just so you're aware that this was going to be mainly Remmy talking, but 90% of the time anyway, which I was okay with. Because like I said, the podcast I did on my mental breakdown, that helped me out massively because it was for the sense of like I was getting a lot of stuff off my chest. And it also meant then that if some people want to know more about my own struggles or my own issues that had happened, at least in the previous months, it was all there for them to look at. It was all there for them to see. And I could always refer them to this video if I needed to. So obviously this is something that hopefully will help yourself, but then also from the perspective of also helping potentially some viewers as well. So hopefully,
like I was for anyone interested, like I was actually the one that approached Spud about me doing this. Like I sort of just blindsided him with I kind of feel like I would like to talk about this kind of thing, because I've never and I'm fortunate enough to be in the position where Spud like asked me to come on and like co-host the podcast. Like I was more than happy to, but I feel like it's I'm taking advantage of it in the sense that it's given me a chance to actually fully go through.
Well, I should
almost
add,
in
I
order.
started this podcast with an idea of helping content creators find a way to, um, at the very least, it would align their own ideas to give them a better vision for what they would then pursue going forward. And then the next way would then be give them ask questions that would typically they wouldn't answer on stream, which then their viewers could get answers about on the podcast, and with that, they would hopefully then help a lot of people. So the kind of third point of this whole podcast is the idea is to help people. Obviously, if this helps yourself, broadcasting this stuff out, amazing. If it helps other people, even better. You know, because like obviously, like you even expressed yourself earlier on. You know, you get a lot of enjoyment in knowing the fact that you help people. Well, hopefully through this podcast, you will help people. So it is also good from that perspective there, because unfortunately humans are wired in such a way that we, typically speaking, find solutions to our own problems by hearing about other people's problems. So yes, it's
Like it would be nice to know, like, for however many people listen to this podcast and hear me say this, like it's a case of you kind of have to hear or see that somebody else has managed to get out. Somebody else, like it is possible. Like seeing and hearing that you'll never get away from it, but you can definitely get to a place in life where you can hold things at bay, and like seeing that people can actually do that. It kind of it's nice to see that people do learn to almost defeat. You'll never get rid of it, but like seeing people like come through and defeat their urges, their suicidal tendencies, and depression. It's a warm feeling. Like so. It does get better, but you have to fucking work at it, man. Like you have to try every single day to remember that it's okay to be a little bit broken. It's how you live with that, and how you use that either for yourself or for other people.
No, absolutely. And let me put it this way to you, team: if I give you a sheet of paper and you fold that sheet of paper, that paper is never going to be perfectly brand new again. Like you're gonna know that fold. You remember folding that piece of paper every time you look at it. So realistically, it's about how you live with that. Could you still write on that piece of paper? Absolutely. Could you still draw on it? Absolutely. You know, you have all these options, but yes, you've just got this bump on the paper. So just bear in mind the fact that you're never gonna get rid of that entirely, but you remember that line is there, and you remember what helped you get around that line. You know, whether you choose to draw over it, write over it, or decide to write around it. You know, you remember that. So yeah, another analogy. I'm just full of all these metaphors.
It's one of your strong qualities.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe I should look at motivational speaking, but the problem is I keep going all the time. So I can't help it. I can't. I mean, listen to me. If you haven't noticed, I go a lot. Fuck.
You just said it.
The problem is, I acknowledge the fact I go and then as soon as I do, I then consciously recognize the next time that I go So it's a bit frustrating, but it is what it is. Rightio. So, obviously we could have talked about that there. Where are you now? So, in your own words, can you describe obviously the fact that you've come through all these things we talked about, the kind of your work with Gosha, the fact that you're now working in a place that I believe is quite a happy working environment for yourself. Okay, it can be stressful, but it's a happy working environment for yourself.
Yeah, I have to give a lot of thanks out to John, the person who actually hired me. Gave me a chance recently with because I was very open to him about the fact that this is my first job back from like a severe mental breakdown, if I was in his position, I wouldn't have hired me. So like I do have to thank him for that. But like where I am now, I feel like I've gotten to the point in my life where it's like I've finally matured and grown. Like, because I know Andy jokes about saying like, all the old Remy would say wouldn't stand for this. Like, well, the old Remy wasn't a functioning fucking human. Like, he was probably wasn't good to be around for a lot of people. Not like I genuinely do feel like I've just matured a lot in my life, and that sense of clarity is also like not. I'm not saying like I've outgrown certain issues, because I certainly haven't. Like, you just don't do that. But Gosh and I having this place on our own, like us having like pets and stuff like that, like actually having responsibilities, like being someone's boss is like as well. Like there's a lot of things that have sort of like opened my eyes that like I've truly ignored and neglected so much of life. I feel like I'm finally in a position where I can just do what I want, where I can actually just try to fucking be happy. Like I've never been in a better position in my life now, and I owe a lot of that to Gasha, like John for hiring me back, like Carol for just being a sparky spit fuck. Kyle, obviously, through the entirety of my year out with mental breakdown, like him and I played over 1,000 hours of fucking Overwatch together that summer. The summer of 2021. Like he spent a lot of fucking time with me. So like same with like Gavin as well. Like there was like a lot of like I had a lot of good people around me, and obviously Gosh was there every single day. Like I was thankful to. I was very fortunate to fall out of the social circle I was in into a group of people that I am genuinely thankful for. Like even the likes like yourself and like and Andy, like we've been friends for years. At this point, like Andy may piss me off something shocking sometimes, and he knows it.
No, never. We over and Andy is a delight.
But like he's a good egg. He's a bit of a knob, but he's a good egg, and I'm very thankful to have him as a friend. Like same as yourself. I'm just very fortunate to be surrounded with by people in life now that it's almost like I feel like
I think you're an arsehole. It's like Remy. It's funny you mentioned this. We're gonna have to part ways here. It's not working out. We're gonna have to go different paths. Team, you can hear me eat something, by the way. It's because I got a sore throat, so I'm chewing on a sweet at the moment.
Got a lozenge.
Aye. Now, if you're listening to Spotify, just in case you got dirty thoughts there, no. So
you're getting some extra sound effects there, kids.
Right. So yeah, obviously, a special mention, obviously, to John, but obviously, the biggest impression I got for this, obviously, how much Gosha has helped you.
Gosha changed my life. Gosha, she changed my life in so many, and she still like asked me to the say like, well, because she can't be there in the sense and be there for the sense of being like oh there everything's gonna, because that just has never worked on me. That kind of thing just makes everything worse for me. Like simply having her there in my life made me a better person.
You know what, team? I feel that is all the more reason why you should subscribe. Hit that red button right now for Gosha.
Click.
Yeah,
hey, Gosha, subscribe.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So I have to use your missus to plug my own channel. I don't care. I'm a sellout. So
I'm all for it.
I'm wearing sponsored merch right now that I said no, I'm not doing the campaign for, and I'm still wearing it. Still nice. Sponsor me, team, please. Someone pay me money, and I'll talk about your brand.
Just don't ask for 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was a bit odd. 10 minutes of brand time was a bit odd, but not bad. It just was an odd demand.
Yeah.
But not to worry. The stuff that they sent me is unreal. So, and the quality of this product is unreal. So, it'll be mentioned on a sponsored stream that will be happening towards the end of the month. So make sure you tune in for that. But you can only do that if you are subscribed. Make sure you hit that red button right there. You don't feel well. I've just done the animation on the screen. But
Yeah, you get the little bell like ding.
exactly, yeah. So yes, obviously yes. So obviously, Gosha, amazing. With that, what are the kind of plans? Like, obviously, right now, obviously, I can talk about where you are right now. Where do you hope to be, say, next year? I'm not gonna ask you 5 years, because who the hell knows where they're gonna be in 5 years' time? I like, that is the most stupid interview question in the world. Anyway, if you work for a company and you interview people, do not ask them where they're gonna be in five years, right? It's stupid. You can tell me this gets on my nerves when people ask this question. Like, where do you feel you will be in next year?
Yeah, because that's such a like if I look back like 5 years ago when I was at the fucking lowest point of my life, could I have looked forward to and actually seen the potential of being happy? Fuck no.
I mean, 5 years ago, Livingston were in League One. They're in the Premiership. Was it 5 years? 5 years, 6 years?
Now they're winning games 3-1.
Kids Kilmarnock of the Livy.
Big noobly.
But yes, yes, a year from now, where roughly do you see yourself being then? Do you think you'll be better? You think you could be worse? You know, what do you think?
I don't honestly. I don't hope I'm any better or worse. I just like right now, I'm content. Like for the first time in my life, I'm content with the way things are, with who I am. Like I just want to sort of enjoy this for a bit because it may not last. I just want to enjoy this, and if that means that it somehow extends further, and I get to hopefully live the rest of my life like this, I'm more than happy to be content. I think too many people strive to be like for this idea of happiness, but I think like true happiness is just actually being content.
You want to be in a year?
Where?
In the Champions League with Livingston. But you know, realistically, I would love to be still in the job I'm in now, but be looking at the prospect of how long I feel like I could do YouTube for to then be potentially looking at doing it full time. I'd love that prospect, but we take it step by step. We take each stepping stone as it comes, and we stand firmly on that stepping stone every time we go. So, on that note, you know what you should do? You should subscribe again.
Hit that bell icon to get notifications.
Or just hit it because Remy's a bell end. Wait, what? Sorry. Yes. Right, yo, team. So obviously Remy has spoken a lot there, and I've asked a few questions, but we've hit the point of the podcast where it is Remy's queries. Wee. Yeah, we're not doing the jingle. Shut the fuck up. So this is the point of the podcast in which I have given Remy full reign over. It will happen at the end of every podcast. It'll be the point in which he can ask a question, and it can be about absolutely anything, and we try and answer. It'll be for me and any guests that come on the podcast to try and answer. So, Remy, this week, what is your query?
Well, as I obviously knew going into this, it was going to be a podcast revolving around a lot of emotional topics. So a query for you today is, do you think as a person that you have a higher capacity for love or a higher capacity for hatred?
Definitely love, because I don't hate anyone.
I find that so difficult to understand.
Yep. Genuinely, people will generally could come at me, with all this aggression, stab me, whatever, and I think it causes too much energy to hate people. It causes too much energy to hold a grudge. I would much rather just either forget about them or just forgive. To be honest, from the perspective of the fact that, like, say for example, that I go to a party and there's someone there I hate, I will then go actively to either avoid them or confront them, and that is just too much energy. It's just too much effort. I would much rather try and just work through it, or like try and be pleasant at least. If they want to be arses about it, I don't care. If I'm being honest, at that point, because that's their problem, that's not my problem. So I genuinely hate no one. So yes, absolutely, capacity to love then is definitely the answer on that one. Because I physically cannot hate someone. Just can't. I think it's also partially down to the fact that I've seen people at their lowest. So I've seen people at their lowest. So realistically, knowing where people can be, I don't want to be any contributing factor to that. So so the fact of knowing where people can be, it's just the fact that, like, listen, we're all in this together. May as well just move on. At the end of the day, it is what it is. Someone, like, oh, do not get me wrong. I can get annoyed by people, and I love to wind people up sometimes. But at the end of the day, say for example, say it's like the other day I rattled a load of St Mirren fans, right? Now they could be really angry. They could really and they could try their best to try and hurt me. They can insult my appearance, which I don't care about. They could insult my family, which would be a bothered by, but at the same time, tomorrow's another day, and I'd forget it all by then. But they come into my DMs and say they're having a rough time, and I'd listen and I'd reply, because at the end of the day, like I said, I've seen people at the lowest, and I do not. Something scares me to the point of being a contributing factor in that. So I will always try and help people. Always, always, always. It's kind of ingrained in me now that I absolutely have to, after doing the counselling and stuff like I said to you, I will promise we'll do a podcast on my youth work days at some point, because there's far too many stories in that. So, but yeah, the fact I've seen people at the lowest, I cannot be a contributing factor to someone being in a situation like that. So, yeah. To answer your question, definitely, I have definitely more capacity to love than hate.
That's a beautiful thing, some people would say.
Yeah, well, people then look at me and say I look like a fat Daniel Radcliffe. So, it's...
I've never thought about it. I kind of see it.
Yeah.
I kind of see it.
It's hilarious because
there are worse things. There are worse people to be compared to.
Yeah, some guys just say my appearance looks magical. As we all do that. It's like, problem is, right, I don't know if I ever told you, I think I might have, but it was the fact that when I worked in the States, my nickname out there was Potter. So my nickname out there was Potter. So the fact when someone said that I looked like a fat Daniel Radcliffe,
it all connects, man. It all connects together.
I'm gonna go put a fat fella on Daniel Radcliffe to see if it comes through. Dear me. I mean,
and if it does, your life has changed forever.
Yeah, just Daniel Radcliffe has got a movie that's coming up that needs to be a bit overweight for. I'm your guy. Get me on. Yeah. Wingardium Leviosa, Greg's. I'm Harry Potter if you went to Greg's rather than Hogwarts. Hold on. I got told that there's like no Greg's in Ireland.
That is a load of shit.
Yeah. There
are Greg's everywhere here.
Good. Because I got told that apparently there wasn't. So
yeah, I work my store is about 100 yards away from one.
Right. I'm glad
that's where I go for my breakfast.
Well, glad you go there to your breakfast and not to your work.
Well, yeah, because I see and smell this every day. I want a Greg's. I want a Sith's beef cheese melt. I want a beefy bake.
That's something I've always wondered, right? Because it's like people working Greg's get free food, But then
I no longer drink coffee.
but then I see them go to McDonald's, and it's just like, you get free food there. I don't think I could ever bring myself to not go buy food when I'm working in a place I get free food.
Well, you don't get it for free in these places, but you get it like severely discounted.
Yeah. I mean, I love a bargain. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. When I worked at Nike, there was a Costco across the road. Seeing really skin months, I used to go to that Costco and have for lunch whatever was on the free samples.
Jesus.
And then that did include one time a shot of whiskey, which I got in trouble for later. But that's another story entirely again.
Story time with Swat.
Yeah. We're not doing story time in this podcast. We'll do it for the next one. But yeah. Like I said, we'll definitely talk about some of these things. Potentially, probably in the next one, we'll maybe look at doing some of my youth work stories and whatnot, because some of them are hilarious. Yes. Well, Remy, obviously, I'll quickly get your point of view and your query as well. What do you feel on that one?
I feel that love and hatred are two sides of the same coin. They're both passion driven. Like, there is a very, very fine line between love and hatred. But the other side, I think I think I'm balanced, but I think I'm much to a lot of people's surprise, I'm a very, very, very highly emotional person, but I just let my logic win out. That I approach everything by a logical standard. So a lot of people feel that I'm very hateful. But I just sort of choose to ignore emotion in terms of a debate. But in terms of like my relationship with Gasha, like what you were saying, it was really making me think about it, because one thing I always say to Gasha is that, like, yes, we can have a massive argument, we can blow up at each other. You learn from it and you move on. Like, I like 20 minutes after, like, I've forgotten it, I've moved on, I'm sitting playing Warzone, like I've just moved on from this entire thing. But I don't know if I can apply that to either love or hatred. I don't think you can really turn that kind of stuff off, which is why I found it so fascinating that you genuinely feel like you don't hate anyone.
Yeah, I just don't have the capacity to hate anyone. Now, I will say, from the point of view that this is obviously me sharing a little bit here, I do also struggle to love, maybe is probably the best way of putting it. I struggle to love things in many ways, which is where I have a slight issue with commitment, which is also a reason as to why I am also single, in that sense. So I would rather work to a point where I feel like I have achieved everything I wanted, or at least achieved most of what I want to achieve, before then branching out. So it's very possible in the future I could have that capacity to hate, but right now, for me, it's an impossibility. I can't hate anyone. It's also I was listening, believe it or not, I was listening to Kevin Hart, I think it was, at one point, and he was saying something about the fact that like the fact that he doesn't hate anyone, because again, it takes up too much energy to hate people, and at the end of the day, if they're focused on hating you and you're working away, eventually you leave them behind anyway. So, it's kind of, it doesn't matter. They may, like, for example, someone might hate me from like 5 years ago, but I couldn't care less. I like, say if I was a friend I had 5 years ago, I don't know what they're up to now, and I don't care, because, like, are they influencing my life right now? No. So it doesn't really matter what they've done 5 years ago. I'm in control of my decisions I make today. They're not in control of that, so there's absolutely no point in hating them.
I mean, there is a lot of good logic, and that, like, I wish I could apply my mentality with how I approach relationships as I do, like, with, like, love or hate. Like, but for me, it's just that those are two things that are always switched on with me. Like, I can't turn them off.
Yeah. Rightio. Well, I think on that one, I think we'll look to end the podcast. Again, thank you very much, Remy, for sharing all that. And team, I'm going to leave some links the description as well for any of what's been said in the podcast. Has made you question things and whatnot. Obviously, feel free to reach out to myself. Obviously, I'll leave all my links there down below. Remy is only really reachable if you have a messenger pigeon. So make sure if you do,
you can contact me via Spud.
yes. I'll send the messenger pigeon. Team, if you did enjoy obviously this podcast, please do consider subscribing. I know obviously you can feel a weird one saying you enjoy a podcast, but if it's tweaked your interest on this particular one, on the subject that this one is, I do please consider subscribing because we've got a lot of content coming up on the channel. Hopefully it's going to be a lot of stuff that's maybe a lot more cheery and a lot more kind of,
Yeah, next one's going to be happier.
Exactly, yes. I mean, I've got a story on pretty much everything, so don't you worry, team. There's a lot coming. But I also have some really exciting content coming up in the future as well, which I hope you all will massively enjoy. So please do stay tuned for that. And put in the comments as well what your thoughts on this podcast as well. I do read every comment. I do appreciate everyone that does comment as well, because it all helps boost the channel. All engagement helps, so like it as well if you can. Radio team, that's everything for today. Look after yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next one. Adios.